Welcome to the new EURES webinar, Info from the Network, the EURES response to the Ukraine refugees crisis. Today's speakers are Mona Ionescu, Training Coordinator Romania; Iana Mankova, EURES Advisor Slovakia; Katarzyna Kokopek, Training Coordinator Poland; Loreta Zdaniowska, Training Coordinator Lithuania; Andris Seglins, Training Coordinator Latvia; Marta Trax, NCO Estonia. Each contribution will cover the response of the EURES country to the Ukrainian crisis. At the end of the webinar you will have the chance to interact and ask questions via chat. As usual, the recording of the webinar will be saved and made available on this platform.
The number of refugees who have entered Romania so far is about 700,000 people. The maximum number of entries in one day was almost 34,000, and last week the average number of entries by day was around 9,000 people. Romania had to manage a very large inflow and outflow of people to which various services were provided. Romanian authorities prepared for the entry of Ukrainian citizens into Romania before the war began, with various facilities such as refugees camps and staff assigned to the 8 crossing border points. 15 transit centers have been created in the border counties where accommodation has been provided. Refugee camps can take over Ukrainian citizens and can provide minimum living conditions for them for up to 72 hours. After 24th of February, the entrances in Romania began gradually increased. After entering the country, the citizens were registered by the Romanian border police. All Ukrainian citizens who wanted to enter Romania could enter in the country with the help of their passport, but they were allowed to enter without any identity document if they applied for asylum at the crossing border. To the subject of accommodation and food. From first hours, the civil society was present at the border crossing points and offered refugees food, hot drinks, transportation, accommodation, beds, blankets, clothes, and hygiene items. Their help was very important, as the weather conditions has worsened, the temperatures reaching below 0 degrees and snow. Many of these people coming from Ukraine after 5-day trips, chilled, uneaten and scared. The situation generated by the conflict in Ukraine has led to a huge wave of empathy, compassion and solidarity primarily from Romanian individuals, NGOs, various communities and the authorities. The mobilization was prompt, spontaneous and unexpectedly strong, both in terms of the organization and the materials and human resources involved, and made available without any hesitation. They offered their availability with all generosity for accommodation and food of Ukrainian refugees, hotel owners, boarding houses, private individuals, people from various churches, monasteries, and local authorities. Citizens' reception flows were created because there were 3 types of refugees who needed to be directed in order to not create blockages in the movement of people and to be able to offer them help as soon as possible. Some of them transited Romania to other countries, part of them stayed for a short time in Romania and they will leave, and another part remained in Romania and requested temporary protection or asylum. Those from the last category were assigned an identity personal number and could benefit from rights according to the Romanian legislation. The local authorities, together with various NGOs, diversified their services at the border crossing points, and several services including psychological services, translator services, even playgrounds for children because there were many children, and the waiting times at the custom points of departure from Romania to Hungary exceeded 8 hours. Camps with 400 accommodation each were set up and schools and gyms were allocated to welcoming Ukrainian children. Thus, the transit was shortened to 72 hours and then they were distributed to accommodation, to volunteers or transported to the areas where they wanted to reach. Point of view logistics. People coming from Ukraine were allowed to travel for free by train from the border to any city in Romania where they need it, only with the documents received at the border. In addition, an association of travel agencies has been set up to announce that is getting involved in helping Ukrainian refugees to reach to their relatives in other countries. They find a way to help those who have relatives abroad, in the EU or in other countries where its members operate charter flights during this period, to reunite with their families. To receive requests, they made available many telephone numbers in Ukrainian and a few other languages of international circulation, from which provide assistance and advice for the Ukrainians to resolve all cases as soon as possible. The main problem they faced with is that many refugees who desperately need help to continue their journey to other countries where family members are waiting for them do not have the necessary identity documents and therefore cannot be boarded. They cannot cross land borders to the surrounding states. Many people entered Romania with pets, and for this reason exceptions were made for the entry into the territory of the pets from Ukraine with valid documents or to do them later. Together with the civil society, was created a very useful platform in 4 languages, Ukrainian, Russian, English and Romanian, in which the applications received from Ukrainians are matching with the goods or services offered free of charge or for a fee, dopomoha, that means help in Ukrainian. There, the Ukrainian citizens found all the information and links to all the institutions and accommodation, meals, etc. Many European countries have sent aid trucks for Ukrainian citizens who were entered in our country and those who remained in Ukraine. These trucks contain food, medicine and medical devices, clothes and other products. A large logistics hub was created to take over international missions from various countries: Slovenia, France, Italy, Austria, Bulgaria. Point of view health. At the beginning of March, the Romanian legislation was changed so that those who come from Ukraine and enter Romania, whether they choose to apply for asylum or not, they can benefit from temporary accommodation and humanitarian assistance in camps or other in locations by primary health care and appropriate treatment, emergency medical assistance, or free medical assistance and treatment in cases of acute or chronic diseases that endanger their lives through the national health care system. They also have the right to be included in national public health programs. Into military hospitals were made available places for wounded soldiers and for the civilians from Ukraine who needs them. Also, blood donation campaigns have been launched for Ukrainian people. Ambulances were also mobilized and the border crossing points for those people who are sick and injured. In addition, at the beginning of March, Romanian legislation was changed also that people in Ukraine could benefit from the following rights and measures. People with disabilities and their companions benefit on request free of charge from social services in the centers. Elderly people with reduced mobility benefit free of charge upon request for social services, and unaccompanied minors benefit from special protection. About minors, all children coming from Ukraine are accepted in Romania. It is recommended to have a minor's identity card or a birth certificate, but they can also enter without documents. More than 1,000 unaccompanied children entered Romania and were taken over by the border police to the Child Protection Directorates. Another 600 unaccompanied children from social services were taken over by the Directorates for Children with Special Needs. Point of view education. In addition, for minors from Ukraine, the right to education in Romanian schools was approved, as well as for Romanian students, and the right to free accommodation in boarding schools, food allowance, supplies, clothing and footwear, and access to all the other rights deriving from this one. Free transportation, the right to allocate basic food for children in primary and secondary education. Asylum seekers can learn Romanian in the regional procedures and accommodation centers for asylum seekers. There are also many non-governmental organizations that offer free Romanian language courses for foreign nationals regardless of their status. All children and young refugees from Ukraine who want to enroll in Romanian education have this opportunity. In Romania, there are 45 schools, 10 high schools and 3 universities that teach in Ukrainian. About the right to work. Labor legislation has also changed in the way that the employment of Ukrainian citizens to be easier. About the right to work. Labor legislation has also changed in the way that the employment of Ukrainian citizens be easier. Those who have entered in Romania legally can be employed without the necessary employment permit for foreigners' needs as usual. They can be employed, except for a few professions in the medical field, without having documents proving the qualification for a period of 12 months with 2 extensions of another 6 months. Those who do not have documents but desire a job can apply to public employment services and register based on identity card, passport or other documents proving identity, and only on the basis of a statement on their own responsibility with the career guidance counselor. Public employment services participated in operative working groups in order to prepare the measures regarding the employment. In addition, it made a leaflet in Romanian and Ukrainian with all these conditions, and it was published on the institution's website for better visibility. Our colleagues from counties that have a direct border with Ukraine were present at border crossing points and informed and distributed leaflets. More than 1,000 Ukrainian citizens were hired, of whom about 350 were mediated through public employment services.
The whole world condemned the military conflict in Ukraine, which began on the 24th of February. The whole world immediately decided to help Ukraine and the Ukrainian people who had to leave their homes and flee to safety to another country. Slovakia, as one of the neighboring countries, stands with Ukraine and without any hesitation offered a helping hand to the refugees. Immediately after the crisis, thousands of refugees began to arrive, assisted by volunteers right at the border. Those who wanted to travel further were directed to suitable bus or rail connections. Those who wanted to stay in Slovakia were offered accommodation and help. Not only volunteer organizations helped at the border, but also police officers, firefighters, government institutions, including the Ministry of Labor, Social Affairs and Family. Public employment services and the EURES Slovakia network also put their hand to the work, because today doesn't require words but deeds. How and in what intentions this help takes place, I'm going to tell you in my short video presentation. My name is Jana Maňková and I work as a EURES advisor in eastern part of Slovakia, close to the borders with Ukraine. Since the 26th of February, an extraordinary situation has been declared in Slovakia in connection with the mass arrival of refugees from Ukraine. The Slovak Republic has created the conditions and taken the necessary measures to prevent or mitigate the consequences of this extraordinary event, so that people fleeing the war receive effective assistance. The official website ua.go.sk has been created in order to provide important information and contacts to Ukrainian refugees in Slovak, Ukrainian or English language. They can find more detailed information and advice what to do before traveling to the border, what awaits them directly at the border and after their transition to Slovakia. If they decide to stay in Slovakia, they can read about registering for a temporary refuge or asylum, finding a job and accommodation, school for their children, social and health security issues, and also other non-governmental organizations that can help them. If they want to get to another EU country, they can read about the transport possibilities, get contacts to consulates and embassies in Slovakia, and who can help them abroad. The complete offer of state, private and hotel accommodation with contacts and the number of available beds for citizens of Ukraine coming to Slovakia are available on the website pomocpreukrajinu.sk in Slovak and Ukrainian language. There are also other websites with useful information in Slovak, Ukrainian or English with lists of various life situations, for example, registration, transport, accommodation, social security, work, education, banking, etc. The Ministry of Labor, Social Affairs and Family of the Slovak Republic works closely with Caritas Slovakia, a charity organization that has already announced the nationwide fundraising called Who Will Help Ukraine. In addition to humanitarian aid for people fleeing the war, the charity is ready to provide accommodation, especially for families with children, in its facilities located in eastern Slovakia. So far, they have raised together more than 1,600,000 euros. There are, of course, many other charity or volunteer organizations who help Ukrainians in their difficult life situation. On February the 28th, the government of the Slovak Republic approved a proposal to declare the provision of temporary refuge under the Asylum Act to citizens of Ukraine and their family members in connection with the armed conflict in Ukraine. Based on this resolution, people fleeing the war are granted temporary refuge upon request and obtain a certificate of tolerated residence marked refugee. This card is issued by the relevant department of the Foreign Police. The document will be valid until March the 4th, 2023, but the period may be extended by the government. Up to now, temporary refuge was granted to 55,881 people out of 283,000 people who have come to Slovakia so far. Large capacity registration centers have been established in the cities of Michalovce and Humenné, which are the towns at the borders with Ukraine, and in Nitra and the capital city of Bratislava in the west of the country. They are open non-stop and serve to mediate the first contact and support to refugees from Ukraine. Under one roof, they can apply for a temporary refuge, assistance in material need, social and legal protection services for children, psychological help, legal aid, basic health care if necessary. There are also PES offices established in every center that provide services and assistance. In connection with the wave of migration, Slovakia allowed Ukrainian citizens to enter our labor market. Ukrainian nationals have long accounted for almost 50% of all third country workers employed in Slovakia. In January 2022, more than 19,300 Ukrainians worked in Slovakia, of which more than 13,000 were men. Today, more than 85,000 vacancies are published on službyzamestnanosti.go.sk, which is the new PES website. These are positions that have not been filled for a long time due to the low interest of Slovak citizens. These vacancies usually do not require professional qualifications, and the language barrier will not be an obstacle. 60,000 seasonal jobs will soon be added. Towards the end of March, 1,139 employers contacted PES office regarding the possibilities of employing citizens of Ukraine. Employers can offer work to Ukrainian refugees through a simplified process due to their temporary refugee status. Pursuant to the Act on Employment Services, an employer may employ a refugee without a work permit. Employment can be in the form of an employment relationship. It means on an employment contract, or in the form of agreement on work performed outside an employment relationship. They may also be temporarily assigned to the user employer. The employer is obliged to notify the relevant PES office of the beginning and termination of employment in the form of information card within 7 working days. Employers publish their job offers on službyzamestnanosti.go.sk, and the Ministry of Labor, Social Affairs and Family provides its translation into Ukrainian language. There are also other websites that promote job vacancies in Ukrainian language. In order to be able to take up employment, an Ukrainian citizen has to submit the confirmation of temporary refuge. In case of an unqualified employee or a low-skilled worker, for example in the field of horticulture, production and services, they need to have a health card, a hygiene minimum, or a driver card. As regards highly qualified employees or regulated professions, for example in the field of healthcare, they need recognized proof of education. Citizens of Ukraine cannot yet register as unemployed in Slovakia. If a Ukrainian citizen visits the PES office, he or she will fill in a bilingual questionnaire which serves for the purposes to identify whether the citizen is interested in working in Slovakia. They fill in the information, what kind of job they are interested in, and what is the level of their education. If there is a suitable candidate, the office contacts the employer. Ukrainians who have been granted a refugee status meet the condition for assistance in material need and submit an application. The family with all its members is considered as jointly assessed persons, but only those located in Slovakia are members of the household. At the bottom, you can see how the amount of the benefit varies according to whether a person is single, married, has got a child, or more children. As of March the 25th, 9,840 applications were handled and more than 19,000 persons were jointly assessed. The Public Employment Services and the Ministry of Employment, Social Affairs and Family prepare a project to help refugees within the active labour market policy framework, with a total budget of over 21 million euros. The project will support education activities, including retraining with REPAS and COMPAS schemes and Slovak language courses for 5,000 participants for up to 9 months, the job mobility support for 4,000 applicants for up to 9 months, volunteering for 4,000 people, 20 hours a week for a maximum of 9 months, and last but not least, trainee and mentoring program for 1,000 people for up to 3 months. The implementation of the project is going to start in May this year. Temporary PES offices were established in large capacity registration centers, as I mentioned earlier, with the aim to provide information and counseling services and assistance with filling in applications on the spot. Information leaflets in Ukrainian language are distributed to the large capacity registration centers and to each PES office, and include information on employment conditions, job portals, and contact details to all PES offices in Slovakia. In order to overcome the language barrier, interpreting services are provided at each PES office. The PES provide professional and psychological counseling as well. Social and legal protection of children and social guardianship fall within the competence of the PES. Therefore, the office also provides support for children from Ukraine who came unaccompanied by an adult. They have to deal with temporary custody or placement in an orphanage. Contacts to voluntary organizations such as the Red Cross, NGOs, International Organization for Migration, etc. are provided to those in need. Financial donations and material aid are organized in some offices. Job agents contact employers in the region in order to find out about their interest in employing Ukrainians. Some PES offices organize information days or small job fairs for Ukrainians where they can meet with employers' representatives, get to know about the labor market situation in the region, get useful information on all procedures after arriving in Slovakia. The offices inform employers about procedures and obligations of employing a third country national who has been granted temporary refuge. The PES closely cooperate with the Foreign and Border Police, health insurance agencies, and social insurance agency. There is also an intensive cooperation with representatives of cities and municipalities regarding, for example, the food aid and effective coordination of assistance to the citizens of Ukraine. We also share the information on International Organization for Migration's campaign, Do Not Become a Victim of Human Trafficking. As far as EURES is concerned, the network helps to disseminate information addressed to Ukrainians, for example, through social networks as well, provides individual counseling to them, participates in activities organized by the PES offices. EURES has also set up a special working group to monitor and gather up-to-date information on living and working conditions of Ukrainians in Slovakia. Well, at last, some statistics. Based on the data from the 4th of April, there are more than 289,000 Ukrainians living in Slovakia, out of which 109,000 are children and 30,000 people are economically active. About 1/5 requested temporary refuge, and 2,371 Ukrainian refugees are employed. We have been following the horrors that are happening in our neighboring country for more than a month now. The initial shock of the Slovaks quickly transformed into unprecedented help and solidarity. Looking at our own history, we have a good understanding of the struggle of Ukrainians for their sovereignty and national self-determination. Slovakia stands with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
My name is Katarzyna Kawka-Kopeć and I work for EURES National Coordination Office, which is situated in the Ministry of Family and Social Policy in Warsaw. And today I'm going to give you an overview of the situation regarding helping refugees, especially from Ukraine, in Poland. So let's start. Between 24th of February and 7th of April, 2,548,000 people entered to Poland from Ukraine. And on the other hand, 502,000 people departed from Poland to Ukraine. The graph shows the daily influx of refugees to Poland. So you can see that on the 6th of April, more than 20,000 people entered to pass the border with Poland from Ukraine. The first legal changes have been made concerning the entry rules. From 19 February 2022, the Polish authorities lifted restrictions on the purpose of entry on border traffic on the border with Ukraine and at air border crossings. Thus, the entry rules from before the epidemic were restored, which means that Ukrainian citizens could start entering Poland without visas or fulfilling additional conditions. On the day of aggression, crossing the border was further facilitated based on existing regulations. People fleeing war can enter if they have biometric passport, country or Schengen visa, residence documents, or they can apply for international protection. It was also decided that the procedure of so-called extraordinary entry with permission of the head of border guard would be widely used. People fleeing war are not required to quarantine due to the risk of COVID-19, as the epidemic regulation was amended for those crossing the Ukraine-Poland border due to the military conflict. Finally, on February 25th, the possibility of crossing the border on foot was introduced in all border crossings. So-called reception desks are a basic element of the management of the war-related migration. These are created by the voivodes in cooperation with local authorities. During the first 2 days, these points operated only in the border regions. Now they are everywhere in the country. Information points are being created additionally as needed, for example, in train stations, because a large part of refugees are traveling by train, for example. The reception points offer first humanitarian aid and also legal aid. Persons who have entered Poland based with an extraordinary procedure should also be able to receive legal aid and file an asylum claim. Some points also offer temporary lodging. People with Ukrainian citizenship who have crossed the border legally after 24th of February are also entitled to the same health care as persons insured in the public care system. Part of people coming from Ukraine held a non-Ukrainian passport as well. So according to the border guard, all persons fleeing Ukraine are let into Poland, and if they do not hold a document, their identity is verified. Persons who don't hold Ukrainian citizenship can remain in Poland for 15 days. During this time, they must apply for international protection or return to their country of origin. The border guard is organizing repatriation flights in cooperation with various embassies. Given the huge dynamic of events and the dramatically growing number of people in need of immediate humanitarian aid, local authorities and NGOs have stepped into act. It was especially in the case in the cities and towns near the border, but also those through which people travel and where immediate aid can be offered. Naturally, a large number of citizens of Ukraine and other countries arrived in Warsaw, traveling in private vehicles, collective transportation, transportation organized by NGOs, universities, families, friends, or strangers. Since the first day, the advisory body on foreigners at the Warsaw City Council aimed to coordinate help in terms of information, housing, medical, legal, psychological, and linguistic aid. Also using a number of volunteers. Within several days, many organizations focused not only on the foreigners, but generally people in crisis. Universities such as the University of Warsaw and Warsaw School of Economics have also offered their help. A database on various forms of aid was created, which is updated on the city web page. NGOs, because of their less formal and bureaucratic character, can react to the situation in a more flexible way. However, they often have limited infrastructure, resources, and staff. Some also required a legal and institutional framework. That's why the support of the city is indispensable. The city is also the actor negotiating with the voivode and central government. Warsaw is not an isolated case, as similar initiatives can be observed in many places in Poland. Local authorities have also created information points where employees and volunteers from NGOs offer legal advice, information about possible lodgings, medical services, or psychological support. In some cities, citizens of Ukraine can benefit from free city transportation and parking. For example, in Warsaw, they can travel in a city totally without any costs. Key information in Ukrainian is being published in city web pages, in the social media or phone helplines. Cities are attempting to coordinate private offers of housing and also using their own buildings for the purpose, entering into partnerships with private entities or creating group accommodation. Schools are also being prepared for the arrival or larger numbers of foreign, mainly Ukrainian students. Also, in the school of my son, there are more than 100 kids in the primary school from the Ukrainian. So we can see that there is a large need for those children as well. Apart from government and social and local government activities, there is a huge and unprecedented mobilization of the Ukrainian diaspora and Polish citizens. People are welcoming refugees in their homes, offering financial aid. Volunteers are working at border crossings, in reception points, in the preparation and distribution of humanitarian aid. The help of private persons is made possible through social media. Many people offer their help, transportation in their cars, sleeping in their homes. Those who are hosting refugees share their needs on social media regarding clothes, food, furniture, toys, employment, etc. Facebook groups are full of such announcements, and others immediately respond. All these actions are bottom-up, makeshift and chaotic, but it would be difficult to offer help in a more coordinated manner to so many people in such a short time. Groups of volunteers, friends, neighbors, work colleagues create Google documents with offers of available aid geotagged on Google Maps. We believe that the key reason for wanting to help people from Ukraine is the Poles' sense of historical and cultural closeness, as well as numerous personal contacts linked with the presence of Ukrainian workers in Poland up to now. There is also a sense that the Ukrainian cause is also Polish cause, since Polish security will depend on the resolution of the situation in Ukraine. There are no voices against helping Ukrainian refugees in the Polish public debate. It seems that the largest challenge will be to uphold the effectiveness of aid in the long term. This will depend on individual resources, financial and of course emotional, especially of people hosting refugees in their homes. The government is proposing financial help aid for such people, but also it depends on the economic situation impacted by the employment and housing of the newcomers. As the labor market issues are concerned, at present all assistance to Ukrainian citizens is provided by the public employment services and not particularly by EURES network. Hence, we won't provide any special assistance as EURES network. In addition, in connection with the introduction of temporary protection directive in the member states, we don't yet have a clear guidance agreed with all member states on the common scope of EURES network services for Ukrainian nationals. In addition, as it turns out that each country works differently, and for example, some countries do not provide support through the EURES network. However, within the EURES network in Poland, we have made the Polish EURES website available also in Ukrainian. But back to the help from the administration. In order to regulate the situation and provide Ukrainian citizens with necessary assistance in this extremely difficult period, a special law was issued on 12th of March, called the Act on Providing Assistance to Ukrainian Citizens in connection with armed conflict on the territory of Ukraine. This act defines the principles of granting temporary protection to Ukrainian citizens and members of their families in Poland, and lists the rights related to granting them this protection. In the field of residence, this act provides that a citizen of Ukraine who has arrived in Poland since 24th of February this year is considered to stay legally for 18 months, counting from 24th February. They may also, upon application, be granted to a temporary residence permit for a period of 3 years. This gives the right to perform work on the territory of Republic of Poland without a work permit. In the field of labor market, this act provides also full access to the labor market, of course, including the services and instruments of the labor market without the need to obtain a work permit. The employer only reports taking up employment through the PES portal within 14 days from the day of taking up employment by the citizen of Ukraine. Ukrainian citizens working under the existing rules, for example, permit or statement, do not have to take additional measures. They can continue their current employment, and it's okay. At the later stage, they can decide whether to take up employment under the new rules or to continue, for example, on the basis of a permit or statement. Every citizen of Ukraine can register at the labor office as an unemployed person or a job seeker. After registration, he or she has the possibility to be directed to work and take up legal employment with any employer in Poland without any additional permits. In the labor offices are separate points for possible registration of Ukrainian citizens, and leaflets for them are also prepared in Ukrainian language. Information is offered on the website and in the information points. There have been or will be points set up where employers will provide information. larger cities are creating special centers for Ukrainians with comprehensive assistance and information on social, medical, or job offers. PES staff go with information to railway and bus stations where a refugee arrives. Additionally, my labor market department in the Ministry of Family and Social Policy has launched a special activation program for foreigners for period of 2022-2025. This program aims at professional activation as well as integration and social activity of foreigners legally residing in Poland who face difficulties such as finding employment or language and integration barriers in the society. The program will support specialized entities working for vocational activation, integration, and social activity of foreigners legally residing in Poland. And on the 21 of March, the collection of applications under this program was completed. We have collected approximately 900 applications from those entities, and now we are currently evaluating them in the department. Okay. From the information, From the information available in our analytical and reporting system, we can say that the vast majority of women are taking up employment. Work is undertaken under service contract, mostly. Then fixed-term employment contract for a probationary period, permanent contract, harvest assistant contract. Those women mostly taking up employment in big cities like Warsaw, Poznań, Wrocław, and they are undertaking job like simple jobs, handpacker, office, hotel, and similar helpers, cleaner, kitchen assistants. Ukrainian citizens reporting to the labor offices come mainly for information. Most of those fleeing the war would like to return to their homes as quickly as possible. Most of them are interested in taking up jobs, also in following professions like hairdresser, beautician, accountant, nurse, doctor, teacher, cook, cleaner, but the barrier is language at the moment. We also launched lots of websites in order to help those people. We have a website with, for example, information on coordination of humanitarian aid. We have website with information on services for Ukrainian citizens. And this is only Ukrainian version is available. Governmental site is gathering all necessary information for them in administrative terms. We have information Green Line portal and helpline. And this helpline provides all necessary information on assistance provided by labor offices. For example, information on procedures for employing foreigners, information for persons returning from abroad, job and training offers, etc. We have a special website. We have also a special website of public employment services, also available in Ukrainian language. We have portal which enables remote submission of application for registration in an employment office as an unemployed person or a job seeker. We have also central job offer database and application e-praca. There are job offers also translated into Ukrainian language. Those job offers are available in public employment services. We have also, as I mentioned before, EURES portal translated into Ukrainian language. Thank you very much for your attention today. I hope that this information was very interesting and useful for you. Of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact with me. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Loreta Taniauskene. I'm EURES advisor from Lithuania. I'm also training coordinator for Lithuania. And my presentation today is about how our employment service and our country deal with the refugees from Ukraine. For the most Ukrainian citizens, the first point of arrival is Poland. And if they want to come to Lithuania from Poland, they can telephone, they can call, and our volunteers will offer transport services for them. Ukrainian citizens do not need a visa to enter Lithuania. They don't need even any ID document. If necessary, new documents, passports can be issued in Lithuania by Migration Department. And there is no restriction on COVID-19, and self-isolation requirements do not apply to citizens of Ukraine. To obtain a residence permit, Ukrainians need to register at one of the registration centers in Lithuania. There are 7 registration centers in 5 biggest cities of Lithuania. It's in Vilnius, Kaunas, Klaipėda, Šiauliai and Panevėžys. And in Marijampolė and Alytus, those 2 cities are close to Polish-Lithuanian border. The registration centers provide temporary housing up to 3 days, food, primary health care, and then Ukrainians are taken to long-term housing. And additionally, they are provided with detailed information about the possibilities of their stay in Lithuania. After registration, citizens of Ukraine can apply for temporary residence permit for 1 year or national visa for humanitarian aid for 1 year. National visas are not issued without valid passports, but applications for temporary residence are accepted for humanitarian reasons. And citizens with the biometric passports can enter and stay in Lithuania without a visa for up to 90 days. And during these 90 days, they can apply for a national visa or for residence permitted in Lithuania. And these documents are valid for travel within the EU. Citizens of Ukraine are not obliged to apply for a residence permit within these 90 days. But if they plan to stay in Lithuania for longer, if they need humanitarian aid, or if they are planning to work, we advise them to do so. And medical insurance, children's education services are available immediately after registration for a residence permit. Employees from employment service, together with the immigration office, together with the Red Cross organization, are working in these registration centers, and EURES advisors can join these teams as well. It's very important to know, in fact, Russian language, because a lot of Ukrainians coming to Lithuania, they speak Russian, and some of them, only some of them, they speak English. And talking about help of EURES advisors, EURES advisor from Vilnius is working every Wednesday at International House Vilnius. It's the only one such institution in Lithuania. Another one is planning to open in autumn in Klaipėda, but this is institution where you can find probably all the organizations, governmental organizations in one place. It's municipality, it's health insurance office, and as I already mentioned, our EURES advisors works once a week on Wednesdays, together with specialists of from social security. The all information in all governmental websites is in 4 main languages for Ukrainians. Here you can see information in English, but it's possible to find not possible. The information is in Lithuanian, in Ukrainian, and in Russian too. And this is main things, the main information that they probably need in Lithuania. Employment service contains information in Ukrainian too, and there are telephone lines, direct telephone lines they can use for information in Russian, because not all the specialists working in employment service they speak Russian, so these lines are especially for Ukrainians. And Ukrainian citizens who want to work in Lithuania, they don't need any work permit. They can start working after registering with the immigration office and obtaining a temporary residence permit. Currently we have around 42,000 refugees from Ukraine, and almost a half, it's 17,500 out of them are children up to 18, and children attend schools together with Lithuanian children. Some of them, they have possibility to join e-learning platform and to attend school together with Ukrainian children. Around 4,000 there are children up to 6 years, and 4,000 Ukrainians are looking for a job. 40% of them are with a university degree, but the most Ukrainians are looking for unskilled works, even though they have had a different type of job in their home country. And we already have 2,900 Ukrainians that are employed. Most of them are employed in manufacturing, transport and storage sectors, accommodation and food service activities, wholesale and retail trade. Additionally, I want to say that employment service are organizing contact fairs for Ukrainians according to sectors, for example, for service sector workers or for job seekers who want to work in manufacturing. And these contact fairs allow Ukrainians to meet potential employers. They are on-site fairs. And some of Ukrainians are already employed as, according to their profession, as IT specialists, as assistants of teachers, assistants of social workers, or assistants of nurses. And it's very important to know language. It's not only for Ukrainians, for all foreigners probably, but there is special attention to Ukrainians who want to work in Lithuania, who want to stay in Lithuania. And I found that 3 universities, Vilnius Magnus University, Vilnius University and Klaipėda University, they are organizing different type of courses online and on-site, different lengths for Ukrainians. Also, Vilnius libraries, municipalities have volunteers who organize courses for them. And Vilnius Technical University provide material free of charge material with the speaking tasks, with the grammar material for Ukrainians. And the Vilnius Central Library already employed Ukrainian who can provide information not only about the books or language courses, but she can help with the other questions for Ukrainians as well. There are a lot of ways, many ways to help Ukrainians, but we are strong when we act together. When we are together, and it's impossible probably to speak without emotions, talking about the situation in Ukraine, but together we are strong and we do our best to help them. So thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Andris Stegliņš and I represent EURES Latvia. I will introduce you with our state employment agencies and EURES support for Ukrainian civilians fleeing the war. I will start with some general information, and on the middle of April we have officially registered about 12,000 Ukrainian civilians here in Latvia, but in reality they are much more because Ukrainian citizens can enter Latvia with biometrical passport without any registration, and they can stay here till 3 months without any registration. And Ministry of Interior is already preparing a plan for hosting more Ukrainians here, and the plan is that will be for hosting about 30 to 40,000 Ukrainian civilians in Latvia. What we have already done, our state and state institutions, as a matter of emergency, our parliament adopted the law on support of civilians of Ukraine, and this law covers areas as long-stay visas, validity of travel documents issued in Ukraine, also about amount of support to be provided, and also coordination of support, as well financing of support, accommodation responsibilities, and also the competence of the municipalities in providing support. Also there is covered in this law in support of civilians of Ukraine, opportunity for Ukrainian refugees to obtain a long-term visa with the right to employment in Latvia. And this long-term visa is issued by Office of Citizenship and Migration Affairs, and also mainly in this office, but also there is an opportunity to get this visa also on State Border Guard or diplomatic and consular missions of Republic of Latvia abroad. Also, we have been established at the Ukrainian refugees support service centers in the capital city of Riga, and also in some other municipalities. Also, state institutions prepared information in connecting with arrival and stay of Ukrainian civilians in Latvia, and this information partly is also provided in Ukrainian language. And I can mention here again this Office of Citizenship and Migration Affairs, which provide information in Ukrainian language, also our State Employment Agency, State Social Insurance Agency, State Revenue Service, as well State Agency for Social Integration. Yes, one more thing regarding this support service centers, and there is working representatives for these state institutions from many state institutions, and that means that Ukrainian people can get all kind of services in one place, so-called one-stop service center. And also our state employment agency helps Ukrainian civilians to find employment in Latvia. And more detailed about our state employment agency's support for Ukrainian civilians, the support is in finding a job search. And our PES civilian vacancy portal is customized. And there is created a possibility for selection of vacancies where employers offer jobs also to Ukrainian civilians. And from other side, also for employers, there is a possibility to indicate that this particular employer is also interested to employ civilians from Ukraine. And that means that Ukrainian civilians can filter vacancies where employer is interested also to employ them and search for a job. Also, our PES and EURES provide individual consultations, advice, and job placement. And if some Ukrainian come to our PES office, then we already work with this client individually. And our PES officers and also EURES advisors provide information on job opportunities. Also, we can contact already employer and give information about potential job candidates and organize job interviews. Also, as EURES advisors, we provide information on working and living conditions in Latvia, and also for those Ukrainians who are interested also in another European countries, then we also provide information on other EU countries. For those Ukrainians who are interested to use more our PES services, they have a chance to register with PES and as unemployed person, and the registration gives access to already all services offered by our PES. For example, if they are interested in some training opportunities, or we can also provide learning of Latvian language to access and to be more successful in finding a job, also including some subsidized employment, also active employment measures they can use. Actually, they can use all the services which are used for local job seekers. But registration for finding job and job support, it's not obligatory to register as unemployed. Registration is necessary only for those who are interested to use all these PES services, additional services. Also, our state employment agency support Ukrainians with information materials, and on our PES website there is created a special information section on the employment of Ukrainian, and their information is available in Latvian language and also in Ukrainian. Also, our state employment agency provides financial support when Ukrainian citizens start employment relationship. They are entitled to one-time employment allowance of 500 euros. Also, we have some special conditions of employment of civilians of Ukrainian, and the Ukrainian civilians can start employment after obtaining a long-term visa with the right to employment, which is issued for up to 1 year. or they can start also a job with other residence document. For instance, if a Ukrainian citizen is a family member of EU citizen. And there also in this long-term visa employment is also the exception, which give more availabilities to start employment also without a long stay visa. In this case, a citizen of Ukraine who has started working is obliged to apply for a visa within 10 working days, but they even can start work without obtaining this without this long-term visa. Also, one exception is that Ukrainian civilians may be employed without knowledge of our official state language, Latvian language, if this doesn't interfere with the performance of their duties. It's also an exception because in our language law there is a list of professions where it is asked some knowledge of and particular knowledge of Latvian language to do their job duties. Also, there is also special rules for Ukrainian civilians, and the legislation of the traditional employment of their country nationals is not applicable. Because for this traditional employment of third country nationals, the employment relations is based on invitation of employer, and also a special visa or residence document issued by migration office. But in this case, it's more easy and more fast. But there is also some so-called special rules, and this is for certain conditions that apply to the employment of civilians who would like to work in education system, or who are the right and to provide medical treatment and work in medical sector. And for those job candidates, they have to do a recognition of qualification before they start their employment. But of course, they have the right to work also in this medical sector and also educational sector if they are done this recognition. That's all from my side. Thank you for your attention.
As you may know, Estonia is enough small country with a population of 1.3 million inhabitants. And what situation we have nowadays, more than 27,000 Ukrainian refugees came to Estonia and planning to stay here. The data from the Department of the Police mentions that on the last week we have nearby 40,000 Ukrainians crossing the border. So you can see the difference. More than 12,000 of Ukrainians who are crossing Estonia, they use it's like a transit country, and obviously they are moving to the Finland or Sweden. So what situation we have now, and which kind of the measures Public Employment Service and EURES implement regarding this current situation. When we are looking on the profile of the newcomers, we should to say that majority of them, they are women with the kids, several kids, and of course it's difficult time for them. When the war started in Ukraine, within 2 weeks, Public Employment Service launched the new online platform. And may I share and show you some facts about our activities. So you can see it's the homepage of the Public Employment Services in Estonia, Eesti Töötukassa. And we create the special platform specially for the Ukrainians who are seeking for the job here. It's possible to find on the different languages included on the Ukraine's how public employment services can help them. But as mentioned, the more important is the real platform where they can meet employers and find the job offers. So far, we have more than 2,500 employers who shows the readiness to recruit Ukrainians, and they register on this platform their job offers. But this platform is available on the Russian as well as on English. And maybe I just like to add such a big amount of the Ukrainians who came to Estonia might be explained that in Estonia we have big society of Ukrainians working, staying here, and Russian language is still commonly used. So they feel more secure when they are coming to Estonia because they can manage with the Russian language. What else we did? I just like to show you one more page. We are organizing each week different recruitment events. Again, it's available information on our PES website, and they are organized in different counties, and the people registered unemployed Ukrainians are called to participate in these meetings, recruitment events. But maybe I'd like to tell you about one very useful for us dashboard. It's internal. Apologize. It's on the Estonian language. This is data is collected from our registration. So, and we can follow the number of the people who registered as unemployed. So you can see that each day we have 200, 300 people registered as unemployed. And when we can see majority of them, they are of course in capital area in Tallinn. What else we can get from this database? So we can see who are these people. And we can see that the majority of the Ukrainians who registered as unemployed, they are females in age 25 to 54. But the more important, we can get the information about the skills and education. So we can see that the higher education among these 3,000 people, nearby 1,000 of them, they have bachelor, PIG or magister degree. And we can see the language skills. You can see that nearby 3,000 of them, they are using the Russian language as well. And this information is very useful. So we can see the previous experience where they worked. So for example, currently we have 18 electricians, or we can make the search how many of the IT specialists came, or medical workers. So, and taking this information, we invite these people to meet with the employers who are looking for such kind of the skills. On the same dashboard, we can see the willingness of these Ukrainians to take employment in some field. And again, we can see here that majority of them at that moment like to find the job in client service field. So as I mentioned, we are using this data, organizing direct meeting with the employers, additional to this online platform where local employers can publish the job offers. And maybe just few words about the situation in Estonia. All the government bodies, organizations, they create so-named crisis centers where we share the information, what is going with the Ukrainians so far. When they cross the border, all the Ukrainians need to fill a questionnaire in database STAR, where several questions like, do you need accommodation or do you need some medical help? What type of the medicine are you taking? So, and it means that we make the profile for each of the person with the basic needs. Then these Ukrainians in the beginning, all of them were delivered to the Tallinn Welcome Center, and our public employment service officers, they made the first registration on the place in these welcome centers. Government offered to all the Ukrainians who came the free accommodation. All the hotels in Tallinn were occupied, and that was possible for 1 month. So now this month is over, and still we have more than 5,000 Ukrainians who need some accommodation because on the local real estate markets, not so many options. What solution was done now? The government make agreement with the Tallink, which is biggest shipping company, and these Ukrainians who need the accommodation will be placed on the cruise ship, which usually makes the trip between Tallinn and Stockholm. So it means that nearby 2,500 of the Ukrainians will be accommodated for 3 months. It will be free for them as well. As I mentioned, on the welcome centers, not only the best staff offering the services, but also the first registration in the department of the police. And the Ukrainians can obtain the ID number. I'm coming back, sorry. And they can obtain the ID number and apply for the temporary protection and resident permit. As soon as they got this temporary protection, and they can go for work or register as unemployed. If this person before coming in Estonia worked in Ukraine at least half year within the last 12 months, or studied full or part-time, or raised a child under the age of 8, or had some another activity which is equivalent to employment, they can get the unemployment allowance. And its amount is not big, it's nearby 300 euro per month, but additionally they have the health insurance and access to the health system on the same price as local people. So what's development at that moment in our database? The Tukasa have the portal where we publish the job offers, and at that moment it's more than 7,700 job offers. And on the next week we are making additional translation developments. So all these job offers additional to Estonian language will be translated on the Russian language as well. Why? As I mentioned it before, many of the Ukrainians, they fluent in Russian, and it will be much easier for them to find the job in Estonia. A little bit about the EURES activities in that direction. A few weeks ago, we organized for our colleagues the big seminar, which was attended more than 100 colleagues. And the aim of this seminar was to introduce the services offered by the government, which are preventing the labor exploitation and human traffic. Because honestly said, we can see even on this border centers or in welcome centers that some of the employers coming and directly recruiting people, and that is very important for us was to deliver this information to the colleague. And one more activities we are going to organize for the IT specialists, EURES webinar, and introduce them the working opportunities here. And since June, all the Ukrainians will be eligible to attend the Settle in Estonia program, which offer them the Estonian language training and different training models. And all this program will be free for them. When we are looking on those 3,000 Ukrainians who already registered as unemployed, many of them applied for the unemployment allowance and also for the different type of the services which are available for them. So, and on base of this, temporary protection and resident permit, they can stay in Estonia during 1 year, and this period might be prolonged in the future. So far, it was short overview about situation in Estonia, and I hope it will be useful for you. Thank you very much.
Today's speakers were Mona Ionescu, Training Coordinator Romania; Iana Mankova, EURES Advisor Slovakia; Katarzyna Kokakopek, Training Coordinator Poland; Loreta Zdaniowskihena, Training Coordinator Lithuania; Andris Seglins, Training Coordinator Latvia; Marta Trax, NCO Estonia. Thank you for your attention.